so many people that are aware of what we need to do in order to promote this destination. And there's a lot of people in our community as well who don't want to brag. And I think that's the truth about a lot of our Newfoundlanders. We don't brag about ourselves. We keep our little hidden secrets secret, and we just, you know, kind of want to keep it that way. But in the long run, I think by making people aware, hey, you know, this is going to promote our community, this is going to bring in economic development, and the culture and the history is so important to show off and brag about, really. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to show people, hey, this is how we lived in the hardest of times on Sandy Point. This is what we did.
Sandy Point is said to be probably one of the very first multicultural communities in all of Canada, long before multiculturalism became popular.
A tranquil, natural heaven, Sandy Point is God's own land. Situated in western Newfoundland, it was once the largest island settlement that originated in the 1780s.
Sandy Point back in the olden days, from what I remember, was much like a fishing village, but yet it was the biggest place around in Bay St. George. It was much bigger than Stephenville and all the other places around here. So people over there live like they fish to survive. You know, they had to make a living fishing and trading. They catch fish and they trade with, like the ships that came in, they trade their fish for sugar, molasses and tea. Mostly all what you call bulk food, eh?
The earliest settlers were the European fishermen, followed by the Mi'kmaq Aboriginal tribes, and a little later by the English and the French settlers, giving rise to a multicultural society.
As I said, my memory of Sandy Point is 56 years old, and it's mostly based on childhood experiences. But what I do know is that the community was divided by the religious denominations, the Roman Catholics living in what was known as Opalong, and the rest of the Anglicans, which was the larger the population, living in the lower part of Sandy Point towards the Lighthouse.
On the religious side, it was split between the Anglican and the Catholics. The Catholics lived in the western part of the island, whereas the Anglicans occupied the eastern part. For more than 60 years, it was a bustling and buzzing center of commerce and religion. The community thrived and grew into a place where families knew one another, a place with little or no crime, a place of no worries. Having cherished childhood memories may not seem unusual, but soon railroads came to St. George's and the island died a slow death.
Well, the island was getting very bad, like from the floods and that, and the water was washing away a lot of the land, right? And the breakwater, that was all being destroyed by waves and winter ice storms and stuff, you know. And the government came over there and gave people a certain amount of money for their house land to relocate somewhere else.
The storms had become very fierce in the wintertime, and they were isolated a couple of times. And one time, the only safe place on the whole island was the rectory, and everybody had to crowd there because of the storm and the water came in. And the government decided it was just unsafe. They couldn't get medical help there. My grandfather had retired by this time, and they had moved the center of the Anglican church to Robinson's. The Roman Catholic Church had moved out as well, so there was really nothing there to hold people, and there were no services available for them.
Talking to the people, we learned a lot more about Sandy Point. The people were very interesting, and we collected information about their lives and how they lived on Sandy Point and what they've done. Sandy Point started to die once the railway station came in. And 1968, I think most of the people were gone. And then by the time 1972, the last person that was living over there was Alphonsus Swires, and then they went and took him away. And By 1973, I guess everything was pretty much bare. There was only houses left there then.
Was it very emotional?
Oh yeah, for everybody. I remember one old fella over there, he was about 90 years old, I guess, and he didn't want to leave the island, and they had to carry him from his house down to the boat. He was hanging on to the door, wouldn't let go, crying at 90 years old. Pitiful, like. Didn't want to leave home, you know. He came across on this side. Probably about a year after he kind of lost his mind, went mind.
Though abandoned, the settlement carries beautiful memories of the past that includes inscribed old stones, concrete foundation of old houses and churches, and the Anglican and Catholic graveyards dating back to the 1800s.
The beauty about the island is that it's still the very same way as when people first moved there. There's no pavements. There's some structures, some cement structures left there. I would say the biggest tourist attraction that you're going to have now is the grave sites. People want to go back. They want to touch the graves of their ancestors, and they want to relate and connect.
In you that which is pleasing in His sight through Jesus Christ, to whom.
It's just such a unique place within Bay St. George. Like you say, apart from the history, it's just such a beautiful spot. You have birds there that are nesting, and you have remnants of a former time, buildings that are there. And it's just a beautiful place to hike, and it's right in the heart of Bay St. George, and it couldn't be a nicer spot to spend a sunny afternoon.
Let's talk about pirates and a ship sinking up along towards Quebec. So that might be an interest right there. People want to scuba dive and probably look for some old ships and stuff and find some materials or artifacts or whatever.
There was a big storm the year before last, a huge storm, and at the end of the storm this 18th century ship had washed itself up on the shore. Oh, wow. And so Black Bank. Yeah. So not knowing what to do with it, of course they buried it again because that's the safest place for it until they can so but this whole so if you had an interpretive person to be able to talk about the shipwrecks, I mean, there's a great story about the shipwrecks in this particular area. Phenomenal, right? It's
An old lighthouse, said to be the first in Western Newfoundland, now under the government's protection, adds to the historical value of Sandy Point.
The lighthouse is another big attraction, and right now, as of last summer, they completed a major renovation on the lighthouse, and it's finished. So that goes to tell you what the government thinks. There were a lot of them closed down, a lot of lighthouses closed down, but ours was designated as one that would be preserved. So we were very fortunate.
Besides man-made attraction, the natural attraction are the rare species of birds, especially the shorebirds. That includes piping plover, an endangered species. Sandy Point conserves the highest number of migratory shorebirds in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Hello everybody, how you doing today?
I thought you had a bitter.
Sandy Point is accessible by boat from St. George's, which is the closest community and can be reached within 15 minutes. The tour management of the natural site is run by the Heritage Committee of St. George's.
We started our organization called Sandy Point Heritage Development and Foundation. We started that organization in 2000 based on our interest in getting our tourist attractions this way towards the West Coast. Based on our heritage of Sandy Point, the stories that we've collected were all very awesome stories from our elders, and they told us stories of hardships, that they had leaving Sandy Point. And of course, we said we need to do something to preserve the history and to build on what we have left of Sandy Point.
Special tours are offered by the committee that includes a Catholic church at St. George's, which is more than 100 years old with an historical past.
What we've done last year and this year was we included the church because it is, like you say, over 100 years old. And what we wanted to do was let people have the option of going to the church, but it's also included in other tour packages. which was happening last year and this year. We had them come into the church because of its age. It's very, very old. The architecture is absolutely beautiful. The beauty about the church is that we were able to resurrect an old clock, and not, when I say we, I mean the people in St. George's, but one in specific person was Joseph Lee, who had discovered online the place in Pennsylvania, I believe it was, and he was able to get in contact with the relative or a very one of the descendants of the man who built the clock. And so this guy came over and helped him fix the clock, and now it chimes in our town beautifully.
If you ring next time, it'll be at 2 and then 3, and every hour she'll ring.
So if you got a 4 o'clock wedding,
She'll ring at 4.
she'll give you 4 rings in the middle of your wedding.
In the middle of your wedding.
Wow.
It's a warning.
That's just
It's a warning, yeah, watch out.
a warning bell.
Warning bells.
For tourism, like we have two places here in St. George's for accommodations, which Henrietta's Bed and Breakfast, which used to be the old convent, Sisters of Mercy convent, and the Palace Inn, which used to be the priest's house, so priest's residence.
For accommodation and food, Palace Inn offers artistic and captivating interiors. This hotel, that was once a 2-story house built in the 19th century, has been restored to a 4-star hotel that has antique furniture and a luxurious decor.
We do know from tourism, from exit surveys, we do know from a lot of research that that tourists are now looking to connect with the local people. They want to bring back stories. They want to experience something different than what they experience in their own life. And Newfoundland in itself has a different culture than many parts of Canada. So that seems to be the trend. And I think there's such a proud heritage in this area that people are really wanting to share that as well. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, is to wrap our heads around developing something around existing things, packaging it, putting it together, and then offering it to the general public and to tourists as well. And that is what we call sustainable tourism. Yeah.
I thought it might have been a package of dope off one of those ships.
Ah, you were hoping, eh? Well,
You were thinking, what a nice retirement package.
Imagine, by the time we got back.
My experience today has been one of awe, I guess. The fact that we visited graveyards and witnessed the headstones of some of the people, and how things are just growing up and will grow over and take over. And that's why I think it needs a little attention. It needs to be moved into heritage category, and that needs some work